So this is a quality ready session. This is going to be, we're going to kind of go over what's new and ready and what to look forward to in 2021. So I'm Whitney. I am our ready product manager and senior designer for the product. And then Michael will be here co-hosting with me. Michael, if you want to do your intro.
Yep, I'm the lead engineer for Ready.
So we're going to kind of be covering three main topics about what's new and ready. The first is going to be impact analysis. So this is a section that we've added specifically in critical functions, and I'm going to demo all these for you. Our plan status update. So we update this modal and functionality, which kind of helped us move forward. So we could do a bunch of accessibility and user interface improvements. I think we did over 20 of these throughout 2020. So that was a huge accomplishment for us. I'm going to take this, oops, and I just want to be able to demo this stuff for you guys so you can see not only this in effect, but also, if you want to go in and test it, I'll show you how you can enable some of these features that haven't been released throughout the whole entire product. So this is going to be critical functions. So we're in a plan, we've gone to critical functions. And if you go here, let's go ahead and add, we'll do payroll. Seems to be one that is pretty common. So it's going to go ahead and create that critical function. And as you can see here, it's going to say that no level of criticality has been documented. So this is the new page that we've added to critical functions. So basically the intent with this page is to be able to walk a user through the decision-making process of what level of criticality should be associated to a critical function. So one caveat, I kind of want to if you enable this feature and you've already established a level of criticality for your critical function, this will not override that. This will just be something you can do in addition if you just want to double check or have your downstream user run through it once, but it will not override. So if you enable this, it won't set all your critical functions to not documented. That was a question we get quite often, but just wanted to make sure everybody knew any information or data that you've already collected around critical functions, if you enable this feature, it won't override that. So if you go through here, some of these functionalities, so this is life and property, probably not with payroll. And we start walking through some of these, and if it's possible or applicable, you're going to be able to give an explanation, and we actually require it. And this was kind of put in place for, let's say, at a continuity manager is having a department head walk through some of these critical functions and establish a level of criticality. They can easily understand what their thought process was when trying to decide the level of criticality and why they thought it was life-threatening or revenue bearing, or could affect student life or income and that kind of stuff. So we walk them through. So we'll just put thoughts in here. And so for the sake of this demo, we'll just go through and say that nothing else is necessarily applicable. And then we jump down here and we have our RTO. So once we select our RTO, and we'll do right around this range based on payroll, it's going to suggest a level of criticality. Now you can go ahead and you can answer yes, and it's going to set that level of criticality for that critical function. Now let's say, somebody submitted this and you're going back through, or you've walked through this whole process and you're like, I don't know if it really is a critical one. You can disagree. And then down here, you can actually reset that level of criticality, let's say to a critical 3, and you can leave a little explanation of why. So did not agree. And then that's going to go ahead and save that page for you. So now when you go back to this main section, it's actually going to save your suggested level of criticality. If you go back to all levels of criticality, it's going to show that level of criticality at this level. So that's something that we've built in kind of as a light impact analysis, kind of a precursor to something we're working on this year, which is a more full business impact analysis. I want to be able to show you really quickly in the admin section. Make sure I click on the right one here. If you go in here, sorry, there we go, enable features. So this is where you're going to be able to enable that feature either for yourself, for all your admins, or your whole institution. So you can do that in this section and then save, and it'll allow for that capability within each plan. So now, oh, sorry, does anybody have any questions about that? Let me hop back in so we can.
Macy, try to there you go. I think you all have the capability to unmute.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I walked through with what kind of showed one of our plan manager, their level of criticality portion, and she thought it was a really great idea. However, she did say that the questions in there are similar to the questions and consequences. So she was like, do I need to do both, or do I just not do, either or? And I was like, well, right now it's really up to you. If you want the level of criticality, I can open that for you and, fill both of those out, because we do want both of those fields or forms filled out. So she says, okay, that's a good thing that, hopefully in the long run, it doesn't kind of interfere with each other, because it's going to be like answering the same question twice.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Macy. So the approach there is we wanted to be able to have a little bit more focused section within critical functions that really help you determine your level of criticality, where the consequences section gathers a lot of that background information, but doesn't really help you decide necessarily. It helps you think through the thought process, but there's not, I guess, like a behind the scenes calculator that says, okay, based on these like very focused impacts, what level of criticality would we be looking at?
Well, one thing to note as well is that the level of criticality questionnaire, none of those questions or answers will show up in the PDF for the plan, but the answers in the consequences section do. Those will print out with the PDF. And I'm throwing that out there. That's, as an engineer, that's what the current state of things are. I'm not saying it's the right thing, but I just wanted people to know that that's what the current state of things are. And maybe we can open it. If people want something different, we can discuss that.
No, that's a great point, Michael. Yeah, so the levels of criticality section is just going to help you determine that critical level. But yeah, like Michael said, those answers to those questions aren't carrying into the PDF. You're going to see a lot of well, you're not going to see a lot. You're going to see everything that's filled out in the consequences section carry over to the PDF as of right now. Another thing I'd like to just kind of like allude to is we are putting a bunch of research behind a business impact analysis, and it will take a lot. It'll reflect from both of those sections and really combine them in a way that, one, I think eliminates some of that duplication that maybe some of your end users are feeling, as well as have a more I guess a place where more of that information is gathered and goes into way more depth. So you really have a complete impact analysis around each of those critical functions within your departments.
So Whitney, I have a question on the critical functions itself. A lot of our users are stating that their critical functions are very similar to each other as far as the different peak periods and everything else that goes within that question. Is there a way, or is there going to be a way in which they could go in and copy a critical function and tweak it like they do with some of the other things that we have available?
Yes. So we are working on something within it kind of falls into the realm of form configuration. So some of the exploration we're doing with that, where it'll kind of act as like a quick entry where you can search another plan and pull in the same data, and then from there manipulate it and save it as is, or save, the new edited version of that. So that's.
Do you realize how much our campus is going to love you for that? The majority of our academic programs have that question. It's like, well, ours is similar with everyone else, with the
Yeah.
exception of maybe one or two little things.
Right.
So why can't we just copy it? And so we offer that we could go and copy the plan for them, but they've already started it and they don't, so yes, you will be a lifesaver and quality will be held up high on the mountaintop.
That's fantastic to hear. Well, then we'll put it at the top of the list. Got to win those gold stars. But yeah. So that's something that we are looking at in form configuration. So hopefully that'll be useful not only for your campus, but hopefully a lot of other users. Any other questions around critical functions before I move on to plan status update? All right. So another new feature that we have added was we redesigned kind of the functionality around plan status modal. So today with this new update, you have the ability to leave the current status, but add updates to just to almost basically keep track of versioning or kind of like a history of what's been done. So in reports, you can go in and you can see an activity log of who accessed the plan. But a lot of users are using this in a way where if they just go in and they had an action item, they want to give a little bit more detail about what they touched and what they updated, they'll come into this section, leave the status the same, add a comment or two, save. But it also allows for you to do, that the very typical old functionality where you can set a new status, leave some comments, and then add that update to that plan. We also added, I think, overdue to the plan status. So you can actually set a plan status of overdue. So it'll bring a little bit more visibility to that. And this allowed us to kind of take care of some technical debt. So then we can move on to bigger features moving forward. It also allowed us to incorporate over 20 small kind of either user interface updates that aligned with some accessibility stuff or just are slightly making the product a little bit more modern. So those are all very small but huge wins for us that you can see throughout the product. Just some simple stuff that helped with like an experience or like this sidebar being sticky, the right and left sidebar, so you're not losing information as you're scrolling through stuff. CTA updates, which we call those call to action. So basically all the buttons in the application have been updated and those now meet accessibility standards. So we did a ton of little work to really make sure that stuff was aligning with standards of today, and also we're making a better experience for you guys within the application. Any questions on the plan status modal?
Whitney, this is Missy. I do have a question.
Yeah.
Statuses, historically, they were triggered kind of by an internal date where they would flip. Is that still the case?
So,
Same thing.
sorry?
I'm sorry to say, I was going to ask the exact same thing, so I'm glad she asked that question. Thank you.
Yeah, to my knowledge, I don't believe they are. I think they're manually updated at this point. Michael, am I correct on that when we updated this?
I haven't looked at that area for recently. Let me see what I can find out during the presentation. Maybe I have an answer before
my
we're done.
understanding is they kind of moved away from that, where it had to manually be updated to overdue or complete or current or due for review. But moving forward, we are working on a workflow option that will allow you to kind of set like a renewal date or a timeline to complete a plan and kind of manage that a little bit more hands-off and just set dates and let the app kind of.
That will be, I'm looking forward to that as well. That will be very instrumental. And I love what you guys have done with being able to go in and change these statuses with what you just demonstrated. But your workflow in addition to this will really add a level of customization that I think will be really helpful for a lot of different schools. So thank you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. It should be very exciting. So any other questions before we kind of move on to what we're working on this year?
Whitney, hopefully you didn't already answer this question. I had to step out for just a quick second. But one of the things that we wanted to do as far as plan status is we have all of our plans are due for review on August 1st or the first Monday of each August. So in the last year, we had to go plan by plan in order to mark them as in review or whatever it is, whatever that yes. So is there a potential for having a bulk status change?
Yeah, so we were just kind of alluding to that. Like right now, we're not like we've moved away from that capability, but as we are looking at integrating a new workflow option where you can actually set the plan in a way where you can include who needs to be looking at the plan, building the plan, approving the plan, as well as renewing the plan, setting timelines for completion. And that can be done at a plan basis or at a super high level where across the institution every year, like this is our renewal date, this is the time frame we have to complete it, and this one they need to be completed. So you'll be able to actually orchestrate a whole workflow around that to help you be a little more hands-off and not have to go in and update every single plan.
Awesome. So that should be ready about what, next Tuesday, Wednesday or so?
Let me get my magic wand.
We do have some a part of Ready that reviews what plans should be changed over to a due for review status. It may not be working the way we want, or it may not be working at all. I'll have to look into that some more, but there's a module inside Ready that does that.
I saw that, but it seemed as if it was 1 year out from the date that the plan was first complete.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for us, we're wanting a hard date set because that's what our auditor knows that what we're doing is having that hard date.
Yep, and that's some of the research we're doing, allowing users to be able to configure by a certain date, like 30 days, 60 days, quarterly, a specific date, a specific time frame from completion. So really allowing you guys to utilize that functionality in whatever way works for your institution, whether it is a specific date or a time frame from completion or from the start date. So allowing a lot more configurability.
That would really be helpful.
Yeah, very excited about it. All right, well, we'll hop back in here. All right, so what's next? Oop, hello, there we go. So I've kind of already talked a little bit about some of these, but I kind of want to go into a little bit more in depth, just to give you guys some background and some of the research we're doing and some of the impacts we're hoping to get out of it. So I know a lot of you were in our lightning round about our new reporting platform, but just anybody who wasn't there, we are moving to a new kind of reporting platform that has a new reporting lineup, as well as a lot more functionality, filtering capabilities than the one that we have right now. So that should be, we are working on that currently and it's in test. So we're very excited about that coming out soon. We are also working on a lot of plan configuration. And I kind of talked to just a few of the ways that we're hoping to encourage and implement more configuration, as well as even going to as far as, being able to almost supply a template to you guys, and then you can go in there and somewhat configure different ways you want to collect data, or if your institution needs a little bit more information or more robust data collection in some areas, you can actually configure that to match, as well as allowing, and we get this one a lot, to change verbiage or content to kind of match your institution and the way that you guys speak to your departments. And on that kind of level, we're looking at even in like guidance, having a lot more configurable guidance. So kind of giving you guys like, hey, this is our take, but if your institution wants to go in and train your individuals or your end users in a specific way, like we want to allow you to upload guidance that matches kind of the way you've been approaching things. So these are all things that we're kind of we're doing research and partnering with some of our other applications to really leverage some stuff that they've been doing as well, to really make sure that we're giving you guys something that's really meets all your needs and allows you to configure some of these plans and collect data in the way that you need to. So the business impact analysis solution, we're super excited about this. We've been doing quite a bit of research, end of last year into this year. We're in somewhat of a design phase. It's still super early on, but we're putting a very robust impact analysis together that you will then be able to pair with each department plan and really walk through all those critical functions. And this is one of those areas where we're beta testing a little bit of how to have data talk to each other, which kind of alludes to, Dawn, some of the stuff you were talking about, where you wanted to be able to almost copy and paste critical functions into other plans and slightly tweak them. And so we're using the impact analysis to kind of be able to look at a plan and pull the critical function information out and then build off that to really create something that collects all the data and the information needed that then we can either pull out into reports or pull up into a higher level plan that then really calls out what's super critical depending on the situation that you're in. And then lastly, workflow, which we've talked a little bit about, but this is really we've been looking at a little bit. If you guys are any of you are familiar with the Build product, they have a workflow, and so we're using that as somewhat of a template to figure out how we can help plans move along through completion, move along through review processes, encourage training and awareness through a more hands-off approach where you can actually use a workflow to orchestrate the appropriate people to come in and engage with the plan, to approve the plan. We're hoping this will be a great way to not only get department heads, but IT and legal and all these people looking at the appropriate things in a very focused way. And automating some of that through email or sending them, access to specific parts of the plan. And so we're doing a lot of work around that to try to implement that and really, I think, not only encourage those who aren't engaging to engage, but also take some of that off our admins and power users back so they have more flexibility to really focus on making sure that these plans are complete and well done. And there's the awareness and training that they need. So that's kind of what we're looking at for 2021. Some of these are, like I said, they're business impact analysis. We're already kind of in a design state for that. Some of these were very much still in research, and we're collaborating with other products as well as our customers to get feedback. But the one I would be looking forward to next is you're going to see reports. That's what's going to be next out and ready. So keep an eye out for that. I know I kind of just dumped all that on you. Are there any questions?
So Whitney, I just want to say thank you so much to you and your team for listening to us and coming up with consistently doing what you can to improve your product. I know that there's so much competition out there, or there's some competition out there. And you guys keep your product updated and affordable for many, and you listen to us. And I think that's what makes the Quality family so much better. And I do mean family.
Yeah. Well, in reverse, thank you for sharing it. I mean, it means so much that we have a community that loves to share, and we want to create that transparency. We want people to feel like they can give us feedback, and we're gonna do our best to figure out how we can implement that to not only help you, but then our whole community. So it means a lot that you guys are willing to share and communicate that to us. So we really appreciate it.
Hi there, this is Karen Mielek from Cal State LA.
Hello.
Hi, is there anything in the works to tie the critical functions to the IT resources that are required for those critical functions?
Yeah, so that in a very abstract way, I'm going to kind of answer that question. So there is thought behind this, and it kind of ties into what we're looking at doing with the impact analysis and our current department plans. And so the way that those two different plans would speak to each other and share data. So we're trying to look at that same model and figure out how we could tie that into, let's say, a disaster recovery plan, or a way where in workflow we could use specific data that we're collecting and have that create, let's say, a report that then is automated when a plan is completed or a chunk of plans are completed, and send that information to an IT department or whoever, you know, would need to receive that type of information. So we're trying to look at some of the ways that we're approaching this stuff and kind of abstract it as a problem we're solving, and then use those same patterns to then say, hey, how could we send, you know, information to the IT department or to the legal department in a way that'd be super useful for them and kind of negate people having to pull information or, you know, draw reports and then try to get them into the right hands of the right person. Is that going to answer your question?
Yes and no, because
Okay.
what I need is a report to tell my IT people, here's from our business continuity plans and our priorities, here are the systems and the recovery time that they need in order to meet our business continuity objectives.
Yeah.
And we've got the critical functions in there, and they go into a section that also they put in what are their critical IT systems. So it's connecting those two pieces within the Ready product so that we can create a report and give to the IT department so that they can make sure that their disaster recovery plan is in sync with our business continuity plans.
Yes. So you're looking specifically for a report.
Yeah.
Was that? Yeah. So I think with our new reporting platform, there will be the ability to configure something along those lines that I think would help.
But we still need to tie somewhere and say,
need to collect
under
that.
a critical function, identify which of the IT systems is tied to that critical function and therefore that level of criticality.
I gotcha. So you're missing that collection of that specific data point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank
yeah,
you.
I mean, yeah, no, but I mean, I'd love to talk a little bit more about that, maybe offline or connect and really see like how that's impacting your institution and how that ties into your IT department to make sure. Because if it's something super simple where we can collect a line or two of data and it allows you to pull a report that then syncs your IT together and helps, you know, fill that gap with disaster recovery, that'd be huge. And I could see a lot of benefit for, I'm assuming, a lot of other institutions. So.
Mike. Okay, here's my thought about that, because that's a topic I wanted to mention at some point, but having to do with dependencies. I know dependencies, the way the platform you know, explains, is supposed to be for departments. Well, that's well and good, but many of my users, their instinct is to also put IT systems as dependencies. And I think that would be a perfect kind of addition to the dependency area, which could then translate into the reporting, because I personally would like to be able to generate a report that shows which departments are dependent on you know, which IT systems. So kind of that, you know, cross data analysis that could, and I think it'd be easy enough to add it to the dependency area, because I'm collecting this information anyways, but I just don't have a place to put it, you know, that would kind of generate a report, let's say.
I'm just making a note of that. But yeah, no, I think, yeah, it sounds like this is, yeah, absolutely, it does. And again, it sounds like this is kind of a gap that, you know, so far we've here.
Because I'll tell you what, almost every group, they automatically want to put some other information in that dependency area other than departments, and I have to keep hammering on them to do departments, but they want to put IT. They also want to put a miscellaneous bunch of other things. But, I think the IT piece of it would be useful. In fact, when I used to use a different software, the dependency area really did have to do with the other areas of the university, the departments, essentially the functions, and the IT. And I think there might have been some other key resource thing for the dependency, but it kind of, the dependencies kind of filled a few buckets.
Yeah,
So Pam, can I jump in here, Whitney?
absolutely, Terry.
Thanks. So Pam, historically, dependencies were set up so that we knew what unit or department needed to work with another department to get something done. And that's the purpose, the reason that it was written that way in Ready. IT equipment, anything in the computing environment is actually just another resource that they need. And we call that out separately under the IT section because it's so important. It's such an important resource. But dependencies, we could get really confused. It's intended it's intended for those units to know who they rely on during an emergency.
Well,
right?
I disagree, and I
Yeah,
think there should
but-
be a second level to that dependency area.
And Terry, I agree with you. This is Missy. I agree with what you're saying, but Pamela, I also hear what you're saying. The way I've guided users in the past was if you're talking IT resources such as applications, back to the centralized and departmental application of the kind of IT function. And that's been a bit confusing to get them to kind of go that direction, because I've kind of steered them away from dependencies and using it really for IT. Because like Terry said, we've looked at it from a resource perspective. And if you're talking applications, popping back over to the central and departmental application function. But I think you have a good point. I think there may be a little bit of IT dependencies that are not addressed as clearly as what you need.
I would like to see the network map of the units that are using, whatever software they're using. I would like to see that network map of all that. That's what I would find valuable in the reporting area.
So it's more are you saying more like the interdependencies of the applications that they're working, that kind of a network map?
Yeah, the application networks, and to be able to, trace it to, we have a decentralized IT structure at University of Cincinnati. So there's IT all over the place. And, it's until you actually talk to people, it's really hard to understand who's using it, who controls it, all of that kind of stuff. So it would really be useful, at least at my institution.
Yeah, I agree. I think the centralized, decentralized, and the hybrid models of technology support and application support is kind of rampant at all institutions. And yeah, you get a department and they kind of focus on their own part, or they think somebody else just magically takes care of it.
Mm-hmm.
So just to clarify, for my own sake, is this at the department level and the critical function level, or more just at the department level you want to collect this type of information?
Well, I mean, heck, it would be great to tie it to a critical function, and that, in fact, that's what the software that I used to use would do. But if you want to kind of stick to that higher level, just department level, that's okay too. I mean, anything's better than nothing. I feel, because I feel like the IT area is gaining greater importance, especially in the COVID, and in the post-COVID world. I mean, even the some of the how to cope stuff looks a little dated. Some of the IT stuff looks a little dated. So, like, in other words, nobody really worries about phone systems going down anymore. It's stuff like that that looks a little dated, honestly.
So let me jump in there, Pam. I think it depends on how you use your phone system. We have a customer right now that is and we have a couple or a few customers that are experiencing cyber attacks right now, but I talked to one just yesterday or the day before who in that cyber attack had the phone system go down completely because it was attached to the network. So it's still pretty critical. And it just, if it doesn't apply to your institution, just don't put it in there. I agree with you though, there are areas that need to be updated in how we ask the questions for sure.
And also to that point, Pam, that Terry just made, it kind of ties into the plan configuration that we're looking at and we're doing research on this year. So with that, there's that idea where we're going to like pre-populate maybe a set of questions that we think are super valuable based on the research we've done, based on our community's feedback. But if it's not applicable to your institution, you'll have the ability to remove that question or configure it in a way so it is valuable.
That
so
would be nice.
Yeah, so I think moving forward, there's going to be a lot of opportunity with that for you to, like for your institution, that may seem very outdated based on the systems you use, where, in Terry's instance, there are institutions that this is super impactful to have that information based on what they're going through. And so we're going to allow you to be able to really configure that so you get the most out of it that you can.
Yeah, that'd be great, because I think maybe you can see this, Whitney, but the more flexibility you can build into the system, the better, because no two institutions are the same. Institution is so different in how they're structured and how they operate and so forth.
Yeah, and I think that'll be kind of some of the beauty that we'll get out of that. The plan configuration is we'll be able to give you a starting point, but then allow each institution to really go in there and make it their own, so they get the most out of it. So I think it'll be a really, really big addition to Ready.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for all your feedback, guys, and questions. Are there any others before we kind of wrap up the session?
This is a great conversation though, and I think that's why it's so important that we hear from you, as Whitney alluded to earlier, to share your thoughts on how they can make this, the best product for you. So be open with sharing that.
Yeah, ready support at quality.co. Always down to get your feedback, communicate through there. We really appreciate all of it. So, and we listen as much as we can, as Dawn said. So, all right, guys. Well, if there's not any other questions, please try to remember to rate some of the sessions as you go through Quality Days. We really appreciate that feedback. If there's nothing further, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Quality Day sessions, and I'll see you in them.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody.